The auctioneer's gavel slammed down and Lily's heart stopped. $50. That was the price of her freedom, her dignity, her life sold to a stranger in a smoke-filled room in the underbelly of a small Tennessee town. She was only 24, but the weight of the world pressed against her chest as she stood on the makeshift stage, her wrists bound with coarse rope, her auburn hair falling in messy waves over her tear-streaked face. The crowd, a mix of grim-faced men and curious onlookers, murmured among themselves, their voices a low hum of judgment and greed. Lily's green eyes scanned the room, searching for a flicker of kindness, but found none until they landed on her. Emma. Emma stood at the back, her blonde hair catching the dim light of the bar, her blue eyes burning with a quiet fury that made Lily's breath catch. At 26, Emma was everything Lily wasn't. Poised, educated, and free. Yet here she was in this godforsaken place, her presence a beacon of hope in Lily's darkest moment. Their eyes locked and for a second, the world fell away, the jeers, the stench of whiskey, the weight of the ropes. There was only Emma, and the unspoken promise in her gaze. I won't let them take you. This wasn't supposed to happen. Lily had been running for years, escaping a family that saw her love for women as a sin, a curse to be beaten out of her. She'd fled to this nowhere town, hoping to disappear, to carve out a life where she could be herself. But poverty has a way of catching up, and desperation had led her to a bad deal with worse people. A debt she couldn't pay, a trap she couldn't escape. And now here she was, sold like livestock to settle a debt she barely understood. The man who'd bought Heir, a hulking figure with a scar running down his cheek, grinned as he tossed a crumpled $50 bill onto the table. His name was Amos, a local thug known for collecting debts and breaking spirits. She's mine now, he drawled, his voice thick with malice. Lily's stomach churned, but she refused to look away. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. Emma stepped forward, her boots clicking against the wooden floor, drawing every eye in the room. She's not yours, she said, her voice steady but laced with steel. The crowd went silent. Amos turned, his grin fading into a scowl. You got something to say, girl? He spat. Emma didn't flinch. I'll pay double, she said, pulling a wad of cash from her pocket. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Lily's heart pounded. She wanted to scream at Emma to run, to save herself, but the words caught in her throat. Emma wasn't just offering money, she was offering her life, her safety, everything she had. Amos laughed, a cruel guttural sound. You think you can just buy her out? This ain't a charity, sweetheart. But Emma didn't back down. She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. Name your price, she said. I'm not leaving without her. The auctioneer, sensing a spectacle, leaned forward. You got the cash, lady? Or you just wasting our time? Emma tossed $100 onto the table, her hands trembling but her resolve unshaken. The crowd murmured, some in awe, others in disbelief. Amos's scowl deepened but greed won out. He snatched the money, muttering curses under his breath, and waved a hand. Take her and get out before I change my mind. Lily's ropes were cut, and she stumbled forward, her legs weak from fear and relief. Emma caught her, her arms strong and warm, pulling her close. You're safe now, Emma whispered, her voice breaking. Lily clung to her, tears spilling over as the reality of her freedom sank in. But even as they left the bar, the weight of what had just happened lingered. This was only the beginning. They slipped into the night, the cool Tennessee air wrapping around them like a promise. Emma's truck was parked just outside, a beat-up old Chevy that smelled of leather and gasoline. They climbed inside, and for a moment neither spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with the unspoken truth of what they'd just done. Why? Lily finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why would you risk everything for me? Emma's hands tightened on the steering wheel, her knuckles white. Because I've loved you since the day we met, she said, her voice raw with emotion. And I'll be damned if I let anyone hurt you. Lily's breath hitched. She'd known Emma for only a few months, their connection forged in stolen moments at the local diner where Lily worked. A shared smile over coffee, a brush of hands when passing a menu, a late-night conversation under the stars. But this was more than she'd ever dared hope for. As the truck rumbled down the empty road, Lily reached for Emma's hand, their fingers intertwining. The world outside was cruel, unforgiving, but in that moment they were untouchable. Yet Lily couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the start of something bigger, something that would test their love in ways neither could imagine. The Mckinnon name loomed in the distance, a shadow neither of them yet understood. But for now they had each other, and that was enough. The truck's headlights cut through the darkness as Emma drove, the hum of the engine a steady heartbeat against the quiet night. Lily sat beside her, her hands still trembling, the weight of the auction lingering like a bruise on her soul. She glanced at Emma, whose jaw was set, her eyes fixed on the road ahead, as if sheer determination could outrun the danger they just escaped. They stopped at a small motel just outside town, its neon sign flickering like a dying star. Emma paid for a room in cash, her movements quick and deliberate, as if she feared someone might be watching. Inside, the room smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap air freshener, but to Lily it was a sanctuary. She sank onto the bed, her body heavy with exhaustion, while Emma checked the locks on the door and windows. "You don't have to do this," Lily said, her voice cracking. "You've already done too much." Emma turned, her blue eyes softening. "Lily, I meant what I said back there. I'm not leaving you. Not now, not ever." She crossed the room and sat beside her, their knees brushing. The simple touch sent a shiver through Lily, a reminder of the connection that had kept her going through the worst moments of her life. They talked for hours, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. Lily told Emma about her childhood in rural Tennessee, about parents who'd called her love a sin, about running away at 17 and scraping by ever since. Emma listened, her hand resting gently on Lily's, her silence a kind of love in itself. In return, Emma shared her own story growing up in a small, progressive college town, studying literature, dreaming of a life where she could be herself without fear. But even she hadn't escaped judgment. Her family had accepted her, but the world hadn't always been so kind. "I saw you at the diner," Emma said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You were carrying 3 plates at once, laughing with that old trucker who always tipped you in quarters. I knew then I was in trouble." Lily laughed, the sound surprising her. It felt like a lifetime since she'd laughed. "You're crazy, you know that? Throwing away $100 for someone like me." Emma's smile faded, her expression serious. "You're worth more than any amount of money, Lily. Don't ever let anyone make you feel otherwise." The words hit Lily like a wave, washing away years of doubt and shame. She leaned forward, her forehead resting against Emma's, their breaths mingling in the quiet. For a moment they were just two women, two hearts beating in sync, untethered from the world's cruelty. But the world wasn't done with them. The next morning, as they shared a cheap motel breakfast of coffee and stale donuts, a knock at the door shattered their fragile peace. Emma tensed, her hand instinctively reaching for Lily's. "Stay here," she whispered, moving to the door. It was a man in a suit, his face sharp and unreadable. "Emma Harper?" he asked, his voice clipped. Emma nodded, her posture wary. The man handed her an envelope, thick with documents. "You've been summoned," he said. "The Mckinnon estate. They're expecting you." Lily's heart sank. The Mckinnon name was legendary in Tennessee, a family of old money, sprawling estates, and secrets buried deeper than their coal mines. Emma frowned, opening the envelope to find a letter embossed with a crest. "What do they want with me?" she asked, but the man was already gone, vanishing as quickly as he'd appeared. The letter was short but cryptic. Emma was to attend a meeting at the Mckinnon estate regarding an inheritance. No further details, just an address and a date tomorrow. Lily watched as Emma's brow furrowed, her fingers tracing the elegant handwriting. "I don't understand," Emma murmured. "I'm nobody to them." But Lily felt a chill, a premonition she couldn't shake. "Whatever this is, it's not good," she said. "People like the Mckinnons don't just summon people like us for no reason." Emma nodded, but there was a spark in her eyes, a curiosity that worried Lily. "We'll figure it out," Emma said, squeezing Lily's hand. "Together." They left the motel that afternoon. The truck pointed toward the Mckinnon estate, a sprawling mansion nestled in the rolling hills of central Tennessee. The drive was quiet, the air thick with unspoken fears. Lily couldn't shake the image of Amos's sneer, the way he'd looked at her like she was nothing. What if this was another trap? What if Emma's act of bravery had only pulled them deeper into something they couldn't escape? As they approached the estate, the gates loomed like sentinels, wrought iron twisted into intricate patterns. Beyond them the mansion stood, its white columns gleaming in the sunlight, a monument to wealth and power. Lily's stomach twisted. This was a world she didn't belong in, a world that had already judged her and found her wanting. Emma parked the truck, her expression resolute. "Whatever happens in there," she said, turning to Lily, "we face it together. Promise me." Lily nodded, her throat tight. "I promise." They stepped out of the truck, hand in hand, two women against a world that wanted to break them. The gates creaked open, and they walked toward the unknown, unaware that the Mckinnon legacy would change their lives forever. The Mckinnon mansion was a labyrinth of marble floors and towering ceilings, each room dripping with opulence that made Lily feel small. A butler led them to a grand study, where a woman waited behind a mahogany desk. She was in her 60s, her silver hair pulled into a severe bun, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. This was Eleanor Mckinnon, the matriarch of the family, and her presence filled the room like a storm cloud. "Miss Harper," Eleanor said, her voice cold but polite. "And your companion." Her gaze flicked to Lily, lingering just long enough to make her skin crawl. "Please sit." Emma and Lily sat in stiff, velvet-upholstered chairs, their hands still clasped under the table. Eleanor's eyes didn't miss the gesture, but she said nothing, instead sliding a folder across the desk. "You're here because of my late brother, Charles Mckinnon," she said. "He named you in his will." Emma's breath caught. "I didn't know any Charles Mckinnon," she said, her voice steady but confused. "There must be a mistake." Eleanor's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "No mistake. Charles was unconventional. He left a portion of his estate to you, Emma Harper, provided you meet certain conditions." Lily's unease grew. She'd heard stories about the Mckinnons' whispers of manipulation, of strings attached to every act of generosity. "What conditions?" she asked, her voice sharper than she intended. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "You're a bold one," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "The conditions are simple. Emma must reside at the estate for 1 year, and take an active role in managing the family's charitable foundation. In return, she'll inherit $10 million. The number hit Lily like a punch. $10 million. It was a fortune, a life-changing sum. But Emma's expression didn't change. "Why me?" she asked. "I'm no one to your family." Eleanor leaned back, her fingers steepled. "Charles admired your work," she said. "Your essays on social justice, your volunteer work in Nashville. He believed you could carry on his legacy." Lily's mind raced. This didn't add up. Why would a man like Charles Mckinnon, a recluse by all accounts, care about a small-town literature graduate? And why the sudden summons, the cryptic letter? She squeezed Emma's hand, a silent warning. "There's more," Eleanor said, her voice dropping. "You must sever ties with certain influences." Her gaze landed squarely on Lily. "The Mckinnon name carries weight. We cannot afford scandal." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Lily's chest tightened, her worst fears confirmed. They wanted Emma to abandon her, to erase their love for the sake of money and reputation. Emma's face hardened. "If you're asking me to choose between Lily and your money, the answer is no," she said, her voice like iron. "I don't care about your legacy." Eleanor's expression didn't waver. "Think carefully, Miss Harper. This isn't just about you. The foundation supports thousands of hospitals, schools, shelters. Your refusal could jeopardize that." Lily felt sick. The weight of Eleanor's words pressed down on her, the implication clear. Her presence was a threat, not just to Emma's future, but to countless others. She wanted to run, to pull Emma out of this gilded cage, but her legs wouldn't move. That night they stayed in a guest suite, the opulence mocking their turmoil. Emma paced, her hands clenched into fists. "They can't do this," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "They can't make me choose." Lily sat on the edge of the bed, her heart heavy. "Maybe they're right," she whispered. "Maybe I'm holding you back." Emma stopped, her eyes blazing. "Don't you dare say that," she said, kneeling in front of Lily. "You're not a burden. You're my home." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks as Emma pulled her into her arms. They held each other, the world outside fading away. But the shadow of the Mckinnon legacy loomed, its demands inescapable. The next morning they were summoned again. This time Eleanor wasn't alone. A man in his 40s, impeccably dressed, stood beside her. "This is my son, Daniel," Eleanor said. "He'll be overseeing your integration into the family. Should you accept?" Daniel's smile was polished, but his eyes were cold, calculating. "We're thrilled at the prospect of you joining us, Emma," he said, his tone too smooth. "But we need to ensure the family's interests are protected." Lily's instincts screamed danger. Daniel's charm was a mask, and she'd seen enough men like him to know what lay beneath. As the meeting dragged on, filled with talk of contracts and obligations, Lily's unease grew. There was something they weren't saying, something hidden in the fine print of this so-called inheritance. That night, as Emma slept, Lily slipped out of bed and crept to the study. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the Mckinnons were playing a game one she and Emma were destined to lose. The study was dark, lit only by the faint glow of a desk lamp. Lily moved silently, her heart pounding as she rifled through papers on Eleanor's desk. Most were mundane financial reports, charity budgets, but one document caught her eye. It was a letter from Charles Mckinnon, dated a month before his death. "To my family," it began. "I've chosen Emma Harper as my heir, not because of her credentials, but because of her heart. She loves fiercely without shame, in a world that punishes such courage. Do not let your prejudice destroy what I've built." Lily's breath caught. Charles had known about Emma's love for her. He'd seen it as a strength, not a scandal. But the letter was marked with a red stamp, void. Someone had overridden his wishes. A noise behind her made her freeze. She turned to find Daniel in the doorway, his smile as cold as the marble floor. "Looking for something?" he asked, stepping closer. Lily's pulse raced. "What did you do to Charles's will?" she demanded, clutching the letter. Daniel's smile didn't falter. "You're smarter than you look," he said. "Charles was a fool, thinking he could change this family with a single act. The Mckinnon legacy belongs to those who understand power, not to some idealistic girl and her friend." Lily's fear turned to anger. "You're stealing her inheritance," she said, her voice low but fierce. "You're twisting his wishes to suit your own." Daniel stepped closer, his presence suffocating. "And what are you going to do about it?" "You're nothing, Lily. A runaway with no name, no future. Emma would be better off without you." The words cut deep, but Lily refused to back down. "She loves me," she said, her voice trembling but defiant. "And that's worth more than your money." Daniel laughed, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "Love doesn't pay the bills," he said, "or keep you safe." He left her standing there, the letter crumpled in her hand. Lily returned to the guest suite, her mind racing. She told Emma everything, her voice shaking as she recounted Daniel's threat. Emma's face paled, but her resolve only grew stronger. "We're not running," she said. "We're going to fight this." The next day they confronted Eleanor. Emma held up the letter, her voice steady. "Charles wanted me to have this, didn't he? You changed his will." Eleanor's expression didn't change, but her silence spoke volumes. "My brother was unwell," she said finally. "His decisions were misguided." "Misguided?" Emma snapped. "He believed in me. In us. And you're trying to erase that because you can't stand the idea of two women loving each other." Eleanor's eyes flashed. "This isn't about your preferences. It's about the Mckinnon name. We have a reputation to uphold." Lily stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Your reputation is built on lies," she said. "You're stealing from Emma, from Charles, from everyone who believed in your precious legacy." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging heavy. Eleanor's composure cracked, just for a moment, before she regained control. "You have no proof," she said, "and no place here." But Emma wasn't done. "I'll find proof," she said, "and I'll make sure the world knows what you've done." They left the mansion that day, the letter hidden in Emma's bag. They knew the fight was far from over, but they also knew they had something the Mckinnons could never take: each other. Back in town, they sought out a lawyer, a woman named Sarah who'd made a name for herself fighting for the underdog. Sarah listened to their story, her eyes narrowing as she read Charles's letter. "This is big," she said. "If we can prove the will was altered, we can take them down." The days that followed were a blur of research, interviews, and late-night strategy sessions. Lily and Emma worked side by side, their bond growing stronger with every challenge. But the Mckinnons weren't idle. Strange cars began following them, their tires slashed one night, a brick thrown through their motel window the next. Lily's fear returned, but Emma's courage held her steady. "They're scared," Emma said, her voice fierce. "They know we're onto them." As they dug deeper, they uncovered a web of deceit, forged documents, bribed officials, a family desperate to protect its secrets. But they also found allies. A former Mckinnon employee who'd seen too much, a journalist eager for a scoop, a community that rallied around their cause. The fight was taking its toll, but Lily and Emma refused to break. They were in this together, their love a light in the darkness, guiding them toward a truth that would change everything. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Lily sat beside Emma, their hands clasped under the table, as Sarah presented their case. The evidence was damning. Charles's original will, corroborated by the former employee's testimony, bank records showing payments to a notary who'd forged the new will, and the letter, now authenticated, proving Charles's intent. Eleanor and Daniel sat across the room, their faces impassive but their eyes betraying their fear. The judge, a stern woman with a reputation for fairness, listened intently as Sarah laid out the Mckinnons' deception. Lily's heart pounded as she took the stand. She'd never spoken in front of so many people, never felt so exposed. But she thought of Emma, of the love that had carried them through the darkest moments, and found her voice. "I was sold for $50, she said, her words ringing clear. "But I'm not nothing. I'm someone who loves, who fights, who refuses to be silenced. And I'm here to make sure the truth comes out." The room was silent, every eye on her. Emma's gaze was a lifeline, her pride and love giving Lily strength. When Sarah called Emma to the stand, she spoke with the same fire, her voice steady as she recounted their journey, the auction, the threats, the Mckinnons' attempts to tear them apart. "Charles saw something in me," she said. "Not just a woman who loves another woman, but a person who believes in justice, in love, in doing what's right. I won't let his legacy be stolen." The trial lasted weeks, each day a battle. The Mckinnons fought back, their lawyers painting Lily and Emma as opportunists, their love as a scandal. But the truth was undeniable, and the community's support grew louder. Protests gathered outside the courthouse, signs proclaiming love and justice, voices chanting for change. When the verdict came, it was like a dam breaking. The judge ruled in Emma's favor, restoring Charles's will and granting her the inheritance. Eleanor and Daniel were ordered to pay damages, their reputation in tatters. The courtroom erupted in cheers, strangers embracing Lily and Emma as they clung to each other, tears streaming down their faces. But the victory was more than money. It was a statemented declaration that their love was valid, that their fight mattered. Emma used the inheritance to fund the foundation, turning it into a beacon for equality, supporting shelters for runaways like Lily, scholarships for those denied by prejudice, and programs that celebrated love in all its forms. Years later, Lily and Emma stood on the porch of their home, a modest house they'd built with their own hands. The Tennessee hills stretched before them, the sunset painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, just like the night they'd escaped. They were older now, their hair streaked with gray, but their love was as fierce as ever. Lily leaned against Emma, her head resting on her shoulder. "We did it," she said softly. "We made it through." Emma kissed her forehead, her arms wrapping around her. "We did more than that," she said. "We changed things. For us, for others." They watched the sunset, their hands intertwined, the weight of their past a reminder of their strength. The Mckinnon legacy was theirs now, not in wealth, but in impact, a fortune of love, resilience, and hope. And as the stars began to emerge, Lily knew they'd face whatever came next, together forever. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.